Hello, everyone. First of all, on behalf of the Predators, I want to thank you for your patience and also your coverage this year. Obviously, that's a big part of what we do. Last year, we talked about number one thing was a plan. Last year, obviously, last training camp, we were pretty enthused with our additions. July 1, we wanted to be a threat in the National Hockey League. Be in that mix. Unfortunately, the season did not live up to our expectations, either our own internal expectations or external expectations. I think I was the one that said it's fantasy hockey until you become a good team. I think I was correct a little bit on that because we didn't become a good team. Unfortunately, we wanted to be to thread the needle, if you will, bring in accomplished veterans that we could mix in with our younger talent. And we worked really hard to acquire those players, and that plan still is in place. That hasn't changed. That's the one part that hasn't changed. The path hasn't changed, or the path has changed, but our plan hasn't. The path is, our timeline has been moved up, if you will. Our hope was to add a piece or two if we were in that playoff mix. Obviously, we weren't, so we were not. So we moved on, or moved up our timeline with some of our younger players. That's where you saw the Svechkovs and the LaRues and a number of those players. Instead, we had a franchise record 7 NHL debuts this year. Comparison to the year previous, we only had 1 that had our debut. So, we tried to give our young guys experience. For me, the future is really bright with our young players in the organization. I think I've been very clear from the onset on defense, guys like Mollendijk and Gibson and Ufko up front, guys like Schaefer, Kemmel, Wood, Edstrom, Surin, Stiga, O'Hara, Fink. You've heard all those names either through their college careers or their junior careers or even in Milwaukee. You got to see some of them in the National Hockey League making their debuts this year. And in terms of draft capital, going forward this year, we've got 3 first-round picks for the first time in our franchise history. We have 4 in our top 35 picks. We should add to a pretty good pool of draft choices that we already have in the process of developing. So we should, hopefully with our, this week our scouts are in for meetings, that we should add to a fairly deep playoff pool or a prospect pool. I'm excited about the possibilities in the draft. I mean, regardless of the outcome of the lottery, which is pretty exciting, tonight we know we'll have a top 5 pick at least. And with any help with the rabbit's feet and all the other things that we got going on, hopefully it's a little higher than that. But we're excited about that because you're going to get a top player to that really strong pool of prospects and deep. And then the lottery, depending on what happens on the lottery, will probably dictate what we do in the draft. In terms of the direction that we have. You look at our next 3 drafts, we got 5 first-round picks, 5 second-round picks, 4 third-round picks in that's our next 3 drafts. Overall, we got 28 picks in the next 3 drafts. That's a lot, and if you look at our depth charts and your 3-year, 4-year plans, there's a lot of young talent coming this way. I've asked our scouts to take their swing again, so they're going to do that. We're going to take our swings and add to that draft capital. In addition to the draft capital, got lots of moves we can make this year. We made lots of moves, I should say, this year in November. Really, where it started, we gave us some capital. It gave us roster flexibility. Going forward, we're also getting into, we get 2 retention spots back. So some of the work that when we felt that wasn't going to happen for us, we started, giving a path to some of these young guys, having the plan going, like I say, the timeline just moved up more than anything. The biggest question, what went wrong? That's what you guys, everybody here, I'm asking the same question. We were excited in July 1, all the acquisitions. I don't regret anything that we did. We had to replace Ryan McDonough. We did that with Brady Shea. We felt we had to add a few more veteran players. You saw in the playoffs we didn't have a lot of offense. We tried to add some offensive players. Obviously, knowing that we're trying to acquire some centers, young centers. We got Edstrom and Svechkov coming. You've got, there wasn't someone out there that we could get signed in free agency that was going to fill that bill, 8 years from now. There wasn't anybody out there. So our thought was, let's make sure that we surround them with a little bit more offense. We've got serial winners, which I've been very clear on. I think it's really important to have those guys that can play a few positions. Like Stammer, for instance, is a good example. We knew we could start him on the wing. If it didn't happen, if we weren't ready with our guys there, he could go back in the middle for a year or two. Then he could move back. You could do that. You could do that with O'Reilly. I've had O'Reilly a number of tournaments with Hockey Canada, what have you. He's a guy that can obviously play center and he can slide over to the wing, depending on where they are, where your team's at. So that was the thought process on that. And we have a little gap. We had a gap of older players, and we have a lot of young players, but that gap was in that, let's say, the little bit older veteran type guys that. So we tried to fill a lot of those type of things. What happened at the start, to me, we got good players, we got good people. We didn't miss on that at all. Okay? Expectations are very high. There is some, I'll say, a weight with those expectations. I think the expectations probably were a little bit unrealistic. And I sort of tried to say that, but everybody was really excited, and I understand why. But the reality is that we got off to a poor start. Some of those acquisitions, I want to say, in our leadership, sort of paralyzed each other a little bit. They looked at each other with admiration. Guys looking at Steven Stamkos and Marchessault and Shea and going, "Hey, those are really good players," and we're, and our guys are on the flip side, Stammer and those guys, the respect they have for Yos and O'Reilly and that. And I think we got paralyzed a little bit waiting for, where do I fit? How's it going to happen? And I think I sort of mentioned that with legacy players, it does take longer, and the respect that those players have for each other says a lot. A lot of people question how our dressing room was. We've got great guys in our dressing room. They really get along really well. I would say they have a really good dressing room. We have really good guys, and sometimes maybe too nice. Sometimes you don't want to step on each other's toes. So we've had that conversation a little bit. And then obviously I think that we caused that slow start, which really put us in a tough spot. The slow start, which hurt our confidence as a group. Been there, done that as a, when you're on the bench, that it does. More importantly, it affects your buy-in. If you don't get off to a good start, you start to question yourself a little bit. I think it hurt our buy-in, and when your buy-in gets questioned a little bit because you don't have a great start, the trust, the consistency, your identity, resiliency, your mental fortitude of fighting through stuff and trusting the process is not quite there. The ability to confront or get comfortable when it's uncomfortable, and then confront each other to pull it together sometimes. The ability to find ways to win games. I thought in that early part of the season we found more ways to lose games than we did to win games as we did the year before. We found ways to win, even if we didn't have our best. We found ways to win. This year, even we had our best, we found a way to lose a game. The one that sticks out is the Philly game. I thought that was as close to a perfect game as you can imagine, and we ended up losing the game. And I just found that those type of things happened to us, and it really affected our confidence. Some of the red flags, and when you talk about buy-in, the red flags that I always look for, offensive zone penalties by some of our key guys at key moments. inability to control momentum by doing things to kill it, giving up a quick goal right after we score one, early goals in periods, late goals in periods, game management stuff with the puck in those crucial moments. Too many men on the ice penalties, I think, which I felt like we led the league in that this year. And it, to me, was just sometimes indicators of a couple of things. A little bit of indicators of trust, a little bit of indicators of focus, and indicators of commitment, because you're sort of not paying attention all the time. So we lacked those. Those were things that we lacked a little bit this year collectively. And anybody knows, too many men on the ice penalties are, usually it's watching your guy come to the bench and you step on the ice knowing where the puck is, those type of things. So to me, those were things that got into our game that helped us lose games, not help us, in any other way. So we were too reliant on our special teams for goals. Our 5-on-5 play was not good enough. I don't think, at times we played to score versus playing to win. And it's a fine line. Guys know what I'm talking about. We relied on, the special situations rather than, outplaying the other team and worrying about the process, And if you do that, you become very comfortable in close games. You get comfortable in all those things. And it's a lot of the things we did this year. We chased the game. And when you chase the game, you get away from a little bit of your structure. You get away from detail where you're trying to cheat for offense, those type of things. So it really played into the buy-in a little bit, if you will. Later in the year, after, say, around Christmas time, January 1, injuries, trades that I made, it was hard for sometimes the group to get some traction. I'd make a deal that might give us a step back in terms of getting a younger player for older player, with the upside being in the end goal. And then we'd have 3 or 4 injuries, and it piled on. It made it more difficult for the group to have some success, timing-wise sometimes. But you can't control some of that stuff. I remember this year a few times where we were about to do something and someone would get hurt, and we seemed to get hurt on defense. All our defense would go at the same time. All that said, we accomplished a couple things through the year. You always look for the positives. We added some young veterans to our group. We added draft assets and cap space, which are valuable quantities to have. And we added opportunity and a path for our young players. And let's not forget, over the course of time, we were expecting to have pain along this path. Everybody says, hey, we've got to do this. We haven't had too many high draft choices. It's time. And we're trying to thread the needle, doing what Washington was able to pull off this last year and a half or whatever. They stayed pretty healthy for the most part, other, I think, than Backstrom. And Backstrom and Oshie were 2 big pieces that they were able to fill with their team. And they threaded the needle much better than we did. All said, the culture that we created, I think over time, is still good. It's still a good culture here. We practiced hard, we played hard. I would say towards the end of the year, our roster was pretty thin, and that was a little bit of design, a little bit of injury, that made it fairly thin at the end of the year. It was tough to win, but I think it did slip a little bit. It slipped early, trying to make everybody fit in. The players that we acquired they're part of the solution, not part of the problem. They're part of the solution, and I think I had mentioned to you that they wanted I talked to them at the trade deadline, and they were all in. I think they were all take a step back, and maybe this year wasn't the year that we all expected. I think you'll have a much more determined group. I think that you'll have the buy-in of the group because they have to rely on each other going forward. So we just got to tighten that up a little bit. I just think that when you have a really good culture, when it slips a little bit, you just got to make sure that we have really good clarity and consequences if there's anything that slips there. So that is part of the process of what we're talking about. I'm pretty clear on talking with our coaches, talking with our players, that there's a couple of things that we will be much better at. I really believe that and I will make it clear as well, is that we will be better defensively. We'll play better 5-on-5. We will need to everybody will need to step up. I'll say a lot of stuff was maybe directed at our older players last year, that they got to step up. They got to step up. But we also need more production from our younger guys. They need to step up as well. This is part of the process, and coaches and management as well. We all do. I don't think we are happy with where we ended up this year. There's a curse and a blessing. I say that the curse is we didn't have the year that we expected. It was difficult. Mentally, it was difficult for the players, everybody involved. We haven't been here before for a long time. I've been here a long time ago, but we haven't. You haven't, because for a long time this franchise has been, in the playoffs, and I think we recognize that, we have to turn it a little bit. We've got to get younger. We want to get a little faster. We want to do a lot of different things. But our older players, Roman Yossi, can't play forever. So we have to create our new core, our young core, exciting core, and we're ahead of the game in a lot of areas, because I look back at last year. Our record wasn't where it was. There was a stretch of 11 games. I think we had points in 8 or 9 of them, but we didn't win any of them. And that stretch right there, just it was a good example of how the season is. You're playing good hockey. You're in every game. You're in overtime and you lose, and you end up losing maybe some ground, and that's mentally really hard. When we had a stretch where if we would have won some of those, we'd been right in the mix, and how things carry. And I know I'll take a swing if we get close. I may add to that group, but we never really got to the point where I felt comfortable that I'm going to expend assets and double down on our future. When it didn't, you look at some of the teams, they were hitting on all cylinders. I didn't think that was the right move for us at this time, but I will when it's our time. And this year it wasn't our time. So, the other question that's on everybody's mind is coaching staff. Andrew Burnett, what's happening with Andrew Burnett? Andrew Burnett, to me, is a good young coach. That's why I hired him. He's a good young coach that had a tough situation this year in terms of our team, maybe our makeup, how we came together or didn't come together. Right at the start of the year. And he needs to add a lot of tools to his tool belt. I think I was that guy. I was Andrew Burnett way back when. In terms of, I thought I had a lot of tools in my tool belt, and you find out you have to add a couple more. I think he did add some during the year. I think he's going to add some at the World Championships this year. He's part of the Canadian staff. Good young people, when you believe in them, just like a good young player, you stick with them. And Andrew Burnett is just like a young player. We could have did the easy thing, make a change and see if we can get a bump up, whatever. I didn't do that. I believe in developing people. I believe he's a good young coach. He's a good young hockey mind. And Andrew's going to work hard to find the solution. He's a solution-based guy, as well as myself. We'll find that solution, and they've met with the players, the leadership group, and he will continue to do that. He'll make adjustments in terms of, everybody asks us, is the right system, all that. We've looked at everybody's system. We looked at the trends. The staff has given me a outline of every team, of what everybody's doing. I watch on my own. I watch lately as a scout because we're getting into the draft. I also watch what's working in the playoffs for the teams that are there, and there's some good teams. So there will be changes. They will make those adjustments. That's what a good young hockey mind does, and Andrew will do that. I didn't want to enable players or management to think it's okay not to fight through hard times. Anybody who knows me, the easy solution for anything, and you see it all the time. I know some of the gentlemen, obviously, that are losing their jobs around the National Hockey League. They're good coaches. But I think sometimes it is too much of a crutch around the league a little bit. If you got a good coach and you believe in your coach, then stand behind your coach. And so we're standing behind Andrew, and in that, it's an easy way out for players and management. Quite frankly, I've always felt that way. That doesn't change. But you got to get the job done. I will have to get it done. Andrew will have to get it done. The players will have to get it done. So the buy-in has to come in 3 levels. It has to come from players, coach, management. We've got to be on the same page that the buy-in's all there, and the adjustments are all there, and all that. So. I would say that I felt like we were on the same page, but it didn't come together quick enough for us last year. But we'll make sure that it does this year. I always believe in obviously putting your spine into it and make it better. That's sort of my message to the coaches. We've had some hard talks to the players. I had not only one meeting with players, I've had multiple meetings with a couple of players on that to make sure that we're clear. We need to demand more from our key people, our staff, everybody, our team. Just demand more. We've got more to give in those areas. I will say is Andrew's going to be our head coach, and we will make some adjustments, or he will make some adjustments. I'm sure in terms of how we play. Obviously, talking with the players and getting some of their input is always critical. I think the one thing that Andrew is very clear on, and I think is clear around the league, is that you're in a partnership with your players. It's not a dictatorship, but you're in a partnership. Now, the partnership is every coach has to make every player better, but the player has a responsibility to make himself better as well with the advice that he's gotten, and grow his game within the framework of our game. Everybody's an individual contractor, if you will, but you got to be on the same map, and you got to have the same buy-in to have something great. So that's got to be, to me, that's a key for success as a coach in the National Hockey League. In terms of our roster, very exciting. I'm excited about our young guys. I've been doing one of the reasons that we're doing this so late is I've been out there scouting with our scouts. I've been out looking at, I think it's a very important draft for our organization. We have a really good base, but we need to add a couple of top people here. And there's 2 ways to get them. You get them in free agency, but usually those guys are a little bit older, or you have to draft them. And we get an opportunity to draft one, maybe 2 of those guys that could be really top players. And we have draft capital. Obviously, like I said, whatever happens in the lottery tonight will send us 1 or 2 directions in terms of where we're going to go. But we have lots of draft capital. We have lots of salary cap available to us if we use it or not. We looked at the free agency last year versus what possibly this year, there's not a lot out there. As you'll see, July 1 may be a very quiet day for a lot of teams, actually. But I'm really excited about our young players. I'm excited for the opportunity that we have in the draft. I'm looking for hockey trades all the time. I think that's will be the biggest improvement with our team will be in hockey trades. Very similar to like what we did with Michael Bunting, with Pittsburgh being a draft choice and a player type of situation. Similar to a Noonan and Wedgwood. Those type of deals are the things that we're looking for. As I said, limited free agency this year. We felt last year's class was much better. And like I say, we have lots of cap space, which is opportunity. A lot of times in the, you get before the draft and the team it goes to free agency or they go to the draft and they go, we got this young player popping. We want to move on from an older player. There'll be opportunities like that. That's where I think the salary cap will be an advantage to us. Very similar to how you got Ryan McDonough, for instance, a couple of years ago. We did, one of the things I did is we talked about Ryan McDonough. His presence as a true leader was, sometimes you miss some of that, so you never know. You get a really good player who can fit a really good role, and Ryan, when he got picked up that way, was a really good fit here. And you saw it at the end of the last 2 years there.
All right, thank you, Barry.
That's all I got. I think that's all I got. I'm out of here.
We got to do questions now, though. So
Sure.
We'll go to Alex first. Katie, if you don't.
Just a quick one, so Brunette will be the coach next year, and then are the assistant coaches also all returning as well?
Well, at this moment, I have everybody returning. Now, could I change my mind? Yes. As you see, there's a lot of people out there. I may look for a little different voice. Yeah.
In terms of assistant, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Robbie?
Barry, Jonathan Marceau had some public comments after the
Yeah.
season about the system, and clearly it needs to change moving forward. What was the process like, kind of talking through that, and what do you think needs to be adjusted? Excuse me, not system, style of play is what he said.
Well, I think, when you have an off-season like we did, it's easy to throw out, the system. You got to have, like I said, there got to be the buy-in. It's easy to say, well, yeah, it didn't fit for me. Part of the process is you got to find a happy medium where it does fit, where your talents will fit really well into the system, and then you got to buy into the non-negotiables. The non-negotiables on a team, that's the responsibility of every guy in the team. So sometimes when you throw it out, I know Andrew, and I know I talked to Marchie, and I know Andrew's reached out to Marchie, that from that standpoint, they will get on the same page. And I'm not, I do know what Marchie said, and I'll keep that between me and him. But there's a give and take on both sides. There's certain talents. No one's a perfect player. No one's a perfect coach. No one's a perfect person. But you have to create an environment where there's understanding on both sides. And so to say, hey, this doesn't work. There's certain things about the way we played that Marchie would like to play a little differently, and so he voiced his opinion, I'm sure, on it, and he's talked to Bruno on it. Bruno's a smart hockey guy. He's going to do what's best for the group in the winning. So, but getting all that information is part of being a coach. Is part of being to feel where your team is. As a coach, I made adjustments every year. Some of them were subtle. Some of them were massive. You change them based on your roster. Our roster could be a lot younger this year. If a guy like Svechkov moves up and we put another young guy in the middle, then the plan hasn't changed. I envision this team, in terms of a young guy coming in this year, and you saw it last year a little bit at times. We ended up with, like, at the end of the year, I think it was like Forsberg and O'Reilly and Luke Evangelista, two veteran guys and a young player. I would like to see that right through our roster this year. Next year, it might be, one line might have two veterans and one young guy, and then, hopefully that because you're using some of the young guys, they're getting experience. You got two young guys and an older guy that fits in really well, but, and that's sort of the blend that I was talking about. That's going to happen organically because of players aging out a little bit and young guys getting better. It's a fast league. It's a young league. And so the young guys are getting better all the time. And they're looser at times in terms of the way they play. But they're fearless. And they've got some really good skill sets. And we're going to have an opportunity we already have a really strong, deep base of prospects. But some of those guys that we can get at the higher end in the draft will really enhance that. And their path will be a lot quicker. So, as I was telling our scouts, one of the difficulties that you do run into when you have a deep pool of guys, you got to make sure you don't have lots of duplicates, because then you got to peel guys off. They either go on waivers at a certain time, they time out. Young guys time out like old guys do. They time out, and then you either got to sign them for long term, and maybe the money's higher than you think that their ceiling is. And they end up on waivers. We got a couple of first rounders off the waivers last couple of years because they timed out. And we're going to have to make quicker decisions. The portal, I don't even know how the junior and the college system is going to, that has to be a CBA thing. So, but you don't know how the players, the agents, how they're going to use that to. You see players moving all the time. It's going to have that effect on young players. And now maybe looking at, hey, I'm part of the Predators. I'm drafted by the Predators, but I got a whole bunch of guys on the right side, and I'm a right winger, and maybe I can't fit there. So those decisions are going to come quicker. So how the landscape is right now, we still are in the exploratory stage of what's going to happen. And there's lots of theories out there.
John?
Barry, just following on Andrew, I know had a good first year, but given the results from this past season and, the personnel on the roster, what sort of gives you the confidence to say he is a good young coach? And maybe if you could expand on what he needs to add to his tool belt.
Well, I think that's a good question, actually, John. Well, I think number one is he's able to, he has the experience at every level. I mean, he's played in the coast. He's played at every level. He's been part of management. He's been an assistant coach. He's been a head coach. He's been nominated, I believe, twice now for Coach of the Year nomination. I don't think anybody expected us to be in the playoffs the year before, just as no one expected us to be out of the playoffs like last year. He's a good coach because he knows the game really well. He's been a part of the game really well in every aspect. I think he's a good communicator. I think he's a guy that you, as a player, would love to play for. I think if you go talk to our guys, they'll say, love Bruno. Okay, you love him, but we didn't win. So, you got to love him more because you want him to be your head coach if you love a guy, So our buy-in has to be complete, and be it a comments that I said do we have the right system? Every year you do a reassessment all the time, and I know there was adjustments during the year, but we never caught up. So was it right or wrong? We didn't make the playoffs. I felt that we should have been in the mix. I couldn't tell you if we should have been in the playoffs, but I knew we should have been in at least the mix to in the wild card mix a little bit till the end. But we never got there, and it was very difficult because you always felt that you're so far away that you just couldn't. You missed the party. You're always late on something. So, but the things that we can clean up, the 5-on-5, our buy-in in key situations. I mean, we don't have to take offensive zone penalties when, we're up by a goal, or we just scored and we got momentum, or we just spent, a minute in our own zone. We can't afford the extra, too many men penalties that we had. Things like that are controllable. Things that don't take talent are controllable. And a lot of things that we did, they didn't take talent. They just took guts and commitment. Yeah. Well, I think just, any time that you make adjustments, making sure that you get to the accountability factor right through your roster. It doesn't matter in terms of a player who's played 600 games or a player who played 6. There should be the accountability factor. Obviously, the guys that have long NHL careers or been in the league a long time have a longer rope. But in terms of the respect for all those guys, that has to be the same. I know that it's key with Andrew. But just making sure that we're all playing the right way all the time. And I didn't think we did enough of it. And that's an area where, like I said, sometimes we're all too nice. And I can be a nice guy, John, as you know. And but I can also be I know when I don't have to be a nice guy. And I don't have any problem with that.
Lauren,
Barry.
on the left.
Hello. Hi, Barry.
Hello.
You said you believe the culture is still good.
Yeah.
How and why is that, given that you said things like trust, focus, and commitment were collectively lacking at times?
Well, at times, yes. But the good people. You have good people. And if you have good people, you're going to have a good culture. Good culture, it comes with what's tolerated. Our players, I think sometimes can be a little bit nice. I always say we were friends, and if I was a good friend to you, if you were doing something that maybe wasn't within our group, I would probably, as a good friend, I would have no problem calling you out. You had friends that wouldn't call you out. Or just as a teammate, sometimes we wouldn't call you out. Sometimes they were a little too nice. But the culture's good. There isn't, there's a want to win. That's why I say the culture's good. There isn't really any people that I have to worry about night in and night out. They don't lose any sleep. That players aren't taking care of themselves. All those type of things. That's not a problem. But I think like I said, the buy-in has to be, it comes with, with success. We didn't have any early success, so it made it very difficult to have a lot of buy-in. And towards the end of the year, when the roster got really lean, we had the buy-in. We just had a lean roster, playing some rosters that were a lot deeper than ours.
Chase on the right.
Barry, through this process, have you found that maybe you need to be a little more involved when it comes to coaching and helping Andrew through this process, or is there a balance where you want to stay out of his way and let him figure it out at the same time?
I think there's a balance. My job is to manage a team, not coach a team. I hire Andrew to coach the team, but I think leaning on me, I've always said to him, you can always lean on me, and I try to give him the confidence to make any decision that he needed to make, because it's very difficult when you get coached from above, because then you don't have the confidence. I would say if everybody's sitting in this room, if I said your boss is telling you what to write and how to do it, and that would take your confidence away. And that's not what you're hired to do. You're hired to have your own opinions and your own thoughts and all that. So it's very important that there's a balance. I can't go too far, but I can help. I do have know a little bit about that part of it, and I think we'll be on a continual talk through the summer and into the winter. But I always believe that the coach has to be himself. He has to be. That's why I hired him. Hired good people, let them do their job, and that's what I did. I hired Andrew, and he'll do a good job.
Yeah, Barry, without major changes in the coaching staff without probably major changes on the roster. What gives you the confidence that the results are going to change and a lot of the buy-in and things you're talking about are going to happen?
Well, I'm obviously, I think the meetings have happened, the feel of the group. I must say the group has a chip on its shoulder, which isn't a bad thing. When you go into the year with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, I think you'll get a team that hopefully will respond in the right way.
Braden, back middle.
Barry, you talked about your belief in Andrew Burnett. You've
Yeah.
also talked about having to change strategies throughout the course of,
Yeah.
of all of this. How do you know and describe sort of when the right thing to do is to stick to your guns and your convictions versus knowing when you need to adapt to new situations?
Yeah, you always go with your gut. You always, to me, if people are willing to adapt and willing to be a part of something, then you don't need to change, as long as they understand that, hey, we took a step back, we'll take a step forward here, and that part of that. But then we are in a results-based situation. We didn't get the results, so we'll need to get some results early, no question. And then, but I believe we will. And I believe we have good people. I believe we have some good young people. We have some veteran people. We'll have better years, and we should come out of the blocks a little bit better. Obviously Andrew and his staff are going through, the things that they had success with and the things that failed us this year. I've done the same thing.
Corey, back right.
Hey, Barry, this may be too much into the future, but you got to look at Wood. You've seen some of what Molendyke can do. Is it your expectation that they win spots on the roster to start next season?
My expectation is that they'll compete for spots. It is too soon, but I'll be quite honest. Molendyke has pushed for a spot for probably the last two training camps. He's still playing. He has a good chance to win the Memorial Cup with Medicine Hat. I think there's probably only about 6 or 8 teams left in junior hockey, and he's part of one. And then you look at Matthew Wood. My expectations with Matthew coming out of college, they weren't that high, because I knew it was college hockey and then going right into the NHL. It's a big jump. But he did very well in terms of the pace. His length was good in terms of he made those small little plays that more like an NHLer than say a college kid. And I was really impressed with him, and then his demeanor in terms of the meeting with him. You got a very focused player. He's a quiet, competitive guy. If you ever met Matthew, he is almost shy, but all his focus and all that is well placed. So it wouldn't surprise me, because he's a good player.
Barry, I'm going to try and fit 2 into 1 here. The guys you got.
You're cheating.
I know. The guys you got last July, you
Yeah.
said earlier, no regrets about that, but how important is it for them to take their game to the level that you signed them to be? And then the follow-up is, a lot of what you're talking here is
Yeah.
essentially preaching patience in a sport where there isn't a lot of
Yeah,
it very
well-
often. How long does that go in the next season?
Well, I think, you look at a guy like both our guys, they were in our top 3 or 4 scores, top 4 scorers on our team. I think you look at a guy like we bring up Marshy, and Marshy, he had 56 points. I'm going to top of my head, somewhere in that. Someone will correct me. Yeah, somewhere in there, 54, 56, somewhere in there. Look around the league, how many people have that many points? There's not as many as you think. So they filled a lot of those offensive gaps for us, him and Stammer. And I think they'll be able to maintain that. I don't expect career years for them, because they're getting older. But I do expect productive years where they can, still produce at a decent level. Stammer and Marshy aren't going to produce like they did when they're, 28. They're going to produce a little bit at a lower level, but at the same time, they're still going to produce, give us quality minutes, and they're going to be part of the usage of the young guys. You need some. You get a guy like Sveshkov who can, if he plays a lot of one-on-one, but he's starting to give up the puck a little bit more. But if you're going to give the puck up to someone, give it to someone who can score. That's the thought process where we got to give some of these young players the tools that will complement them in the future. The tools to grow as a pro, which I think we've done that, and the tools on the ice so they can grow as a pro. So I think those guys can do that, and they have done that. We just got to do it better.
All right, Nick is next. Then, guys, I've got the mental list going in my head. We're going to try and get through as many as we can, just so you know.
Barry, just want to get a quick thought about Luke Evangelista. He's one of your key free agents this summer. Just a few other small guys as well, but wanted to get your thoughts on where you may stand with him. He mentioned how there's no rush to get a deal done. He's got the entire summer, basically. So just wanted your thoughts on him.
If it was up to me, I'd have the deal done right now. I've talked to his agent, and his agent, we're started the discussions. Obviously, Luke is one of the guys that we're going to have to get signed. The full intention to get him signed sooner rather than later. I'm just looking at my list of guys here. Obviously, Luke is a key young guy that we want to get signed. The other guys that we re-signed, Murray and Corona, Hader in the net, on defense. Obviously, Jeremy Lazon is a guy that he's coming back from basically missing a whole year. It's real key for us. I think we missed Losey just as we missed Yost. I mean, those are two identity pieces that we missed for a long time. We'll see where we stand with him as he gets back this year. But we're already talking a little bit with his agent. Obviously, the agents at the same time are trying to get a feel for the market, so they're slowing things down a little bit at times. And then for the most part, we've got a couple of decisions on our drafts, but really don't have a lot on our plate. It's going to be Luke and a couple of we'll say younger or non-established guys.
George, back right.
Hey, Barry. When you told Andrew he was coming back, I'm going to guess that he said, okay, level with me. What kind of leash am I on? And by the way, I'm going to cheat. I got a second question.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The second one is 82 game season. Why did Marchessault feel the need to tell us what he should have been telling Andrew? And if there is great communications, then why hadn't that got settled?
Well, your first question, I talked to, we're going to have to go to one because I'll forget the second question all the time. With Andrew, I was not only Andrew, but all our coaches, what I felt that they needed to, reconnect and get everything in the right order, if you will. Sometimes it gets out of order. Your second question, I have no idea. I'm sure I know they did talk. That wasn't Andrew's a really good communicator with all that. Why Marchie said it in public, you have to ask him, because I can't answer a question that I didn't give. So I can't really answer that, but I know they did communicate that, and sometimes you say things that just gets out and you guys jump on it and it goes crazy. So
Russell on the left by Katie.
Barry, you mentioned that there was some sort of paralysis by analysis going on there between the team's existing leadership and then the new guys that came in last summer. How much do you think that sort of messed with the team's entire dynamic, and then do you feel like that's resolved at this point?
Well, I think you get to spend time with people I think you find out what you like or don't like about people. But yeah, I think there was a little bit of a stall. I mean, we had I thought we started off a training camp. We had a really strong training camp. I think anybody who was there, you could see it. There was a lot of excitement and enthusiasm, and then we got off to the slow start. I mean, the first game, I thought we handled Dallas really well. We hit 6 posts that night, and I'm thinking, okay, we're going to score a lot, but we still got a lot of room to clean up stuff. But then we never really got off the schneid for 5 games, and now we started chasing it. And like I say, and then I thought the rest of our, we had a great start of the training camp, and then it sort of dwindled a little bit. Weather effects or whatever, I can't blame anything on that. But I just thought we lost a little bit of momentum going in, and then the season started, and I thought we'd jump back, and we looked pretty good in that first game, but we didn't find that back of the net enough. I think we hit the post in the last 1.6 seconds or whatever it was, and it goes in, and it's a different result. But we didn't. So it's in the past, so we got to look forward. Looking forward is all we can do. The last season is done. We learn from it as much as we can. We build from it as much as we can, and to get excited about the future. The future's bright here. I mean, we've got a great fan base. We've got good young kids coming. We're in a real tough division, as you see every night right now with the. I mean, you look at great. We saw 2 great series in the last 48 hours. I mean, you look at especially in the West. You look at Colorado. That's a really good team, and you look at Dallas. That's a really good team. They're out. They're out in the first round. That's almost mind-boggling. You look at St. Louis and Winnipeg. That series. There's 2 really good teams that the last 48 hours are out quickly, and you could argue that they could win the cup. So it's a bear in our division, in our conference. It's just there's good teams, and we're going to do our best to put our best team out there, but at the same time we have to create a young core so that we can be one of those teams with our young core, the guys that we draft, the guys that are leading their team, other than the trade with Rantanen, the key guys for those teams are guys that they have drafted at a pretty high rate. All the teams that are in the going deep right now, McDavid, those type of guys are all high draft choices, and hopefully we get our swings now.
Chris in the back.
Hey, Barry. Talking about looking forward specifically, the immediate forward to next year, given your faith in Andrew like you've professed, what is your measure for success with him and this team that will justify your decision to keep him?
Well, I think it's going to show a lot in the 5-on-5 play and the connection. To me, the indicators for how your team's going to do is always their 5-on-5 play, not your special teams. That's something that helps you win games for sure, but I think your measure of your team is your 5-on-5 play. Our ability to play on both sides of the puck on a very consistent basis, our ability to play unified on a very consistent basis, 5-on-5, will be a big determining factor.
Do you think you'll know that pretty early on?
Well, I go on everybody asks you when. I can tell you, I won a cup, and we didn't come together till about game 30, with that team. In the year previous, we won 2 years previous. We came together really quick and won the President's Trophy, and we didn't win a cup. So to give you a defined answer would be very difficult, but I'm hoping that the process sooner than later, for sure.
All right, Barry, been very accommodating. We're down to our final 2. We'll go to John and then Alex.
You're cutting into my first round scouts meeting right now.
Yes, that's why we're down to the final 2.
Okay. Barry, to follow up on kind of the big 3 that you signed last offseason, all three of those guys had been playing for their teams for several years previously. This was a first year, experience for a lot of them. How much do you expect, and how much do you need them to be, I guess, as invested, as committed as possible? Do you think there will be a difference in year two after all three of them came from different
Yeah, I do. I look at Brady. Brady Shea, for instance, was playing sort of a man-on-man defense for 7 years straight, and then all of a sudden, we were in a little bit more zone, if you will. It took him a while. I mean, there's a little bit of a delay mechanism that happens when you're not sure, or it doesn't come natural. I thought in the last half of the season we had Brady Shea was a lot of nights he was the only NHLer that was regular NHLer that was playing on our defense for the last 20 games, and I thought he was really good and played outstanding for us. So, and it's hard because we weren't as deep in some areas. So, but you just take his impact in a night in and night out. It was pretty significant. So, I'm hoping that that applies to all. I think in Marchie's case, for instance, sometimes you don't realize how much going from organization to organization impacts a person, because it has great value into their makeup of who they are and what they've done and what they've accomplished. I mean, Marchie didn't have his clothes, as a Vegas Golden Knight until game, 79. I watched how emotional he was, and how he valued his time in Vegas. You didn't realize how much it affected him until you saw it in real time, and it did. So he has that closure, hopefully, and with that closure, hopefully he's just a little bit there. And it's not that he wasn't there, but the closure allows you to say, you know what, I'm here, my feet are here now, and let's make the best of it. There's a reason that he's playing in the National Hockey League at a high level. He wasn't drafted high, but he's made impact in the game because he has that chip on his shoulder. So I'm hoping he has that chip on his shoulder. I know Stammer wants to be back in the playoffs. I know Yost wants to be back in the playoffs. All these guys want to be back in the playoffs. So we're going to put our best foot forward and try to make the playoffs. That's our goal every year. Our goal is to make the playoffs, and then you get in the playoffs to win a Stanley Cup. That shit doesn't change. But there's certain things in this business that you have to be patient for. You have to, you just can't. How do you get experience? How do young guys get experience in this league? You have to play. So I am going to leave some spots for some young guys to get experience, because they're going to be our future. I am going to, and the older players will realize how good, as I'm getting older and I'm not as quick. I need someone that's maybe younger and quicker and can do some of the things that maybe I don't like doing anymore. And you get a good balance. So I think the young guys will give us enthusiasm. I think our older players, be it our veteran players, they will give us direction. They will give us impact. And the mix of the two should be really good. That's what you can look at every team, even the teams that are still playing. There's some good young players on all those teams, and they bring different elements, and the trust there, within the lines are there. So
Bring us home, Alex.
All right. Barry.
Last one.
Yep. In 2 months, UC Soros gets not only a pay raise, but he's locked into an 8-year contract. Mm-hmm. He's had 3 years of declining numbers. What's your level of concern as that's about to kick in?
Well, I think my concern, obviously, I 5-on-5 is, or the way you play in front of your goaltender is paramount. Every team, you can take a goaltender, you can take, the Vezina, the trophy winner, the top guys in our team in the league right now, and put them on our group this year. I think they would have declining numbers too. That's how I feel. So I believe I have a lot of trust in Juice. Juice has an ability he still moves very, very well. I think there's lots of tread on the tire